For 4 years, Barack Obama demonstrated what it means to lead with clarity and steady judgment. Now he faced an unexpected challenge from Ivanka Trump, and the way he handled the moment, with his usual calm and dignity, reminded everyone why his leadership is still respected. The event was almost designed for tension. Two well-known figures stood on the same stage. One with decades of political experience, the other carrying a name linked to wealth, business, and increasing political influence. The atmosphere felt charged. Both Barack Obama and Ivanka Trump were invited to speak on leadership and integrity, values that have shaped their public identities, though in very different ways. Ivanka Trump was introduced first. She walked confidently to the podium, heels tapping lightly as she offered a practiced, composed smile. The audience sensed a layer of tension, aware of her family background and the polarizing reputation of her father, Donald Trump. Still, Ivanka often attempted to present herself as a moderating voice, someone positioned between her father's blunt style and the public's expectations for diplomacy. But today, she wasn't simply sharing ideas. She had a specific point she intended to deliver, and she wasn't going to miss an opportunity to direct a subtle critique toward Barack Obama. Her speech opened with polite remarks meant to establish connection, touching on leadership, honesty, responsibility, and character. As she continued, her tone grew more pointed. The focus shifted from broad ideals to a sharper message. Leadership, she said with measured emphasis, requires staying grounded, understanding the needs of the nation, and paying attention to what matters to everyday Americans. Real leadership, she added, is not about titles or speeches. It centers on family values and personal responsibility. Yet in recent years, she continued, the country has seen leadership that seems distant from the realities people live every day. A government that struggles to grasp what working families truly face. One that at times feels disconnected from the values forming the foundation of the nation. She paused intentionally, letting the words settle. The reference to Obama was clear, even though she had not used his name. The room shifted. What began as a conversation about principles was now directed at a former president's record. The moment was calculated, designed to highlight her own definition of leadership in contrast to past administrations. Ivanka Trump's critique moved beyond general observation. It became a direct challenge to Barack Obama's legacy. She firmly stated that past policies encouraged dependence and government overreach. According to her, they failed to address the true challenges faced by American families and created systems that offered support rather than opportunities for independence. It was evident this was more than a policy disagreement. Her remarks became a personal challenge to Obama's leadership and values. Though her smile remained steady, the audience sensed the tension in her tone. She wasn't just making a point. She was trying to reshape the narrative, positioning herself as the opposite of what she portrayed Obama to represent. Where Obama had been measured and analytical, she presented herself as connected to everyday concerns. She implied that diplomacy could be weakness, and attempts to unify a divided nation could be seen as ineffective. Then she raised her voice slightly to deliver the core of her message. Leadership, she argued, requires courage to make difficult, even unpopular decisions. It demands doing what is right instead of what is easy and staying rooted in the country's defining values: family, faith, and hard work. And she stated clearly that she did not believe the past 8 years reflected those standards. Her words lingered. The challenge was unmistakable. The audience waited. Ivanka's critique questioned Obama's values, character, and leadership ability. Obama, seated toward the back, listened quietly with arms folded and a calm expression. He did not react immediately, but the room felt the growing tension. Everyone understood that whatever he said next would shape the moment. The stage was set not only for a difference in ideas but also for a test of leadership and composure. Would Obama respond sharply? Would he defend his legacy with the eloquence he was known for? Or would he stay composed and let his history speak for itself? He remained still, his expression unchanged. To casual observers, he might have seemed indifferent, but those familiar with him recognized his approach. For Obama, leadership was not about quick reactions or trading personal comments. It was about patience and waiting for the right moment to speak effectively. The room fell quiet. Everyone expected confrontation, but Obama didn't respond immediately or meet criticism with instant rebuttal. He allowed silence to fill the space. Ivanka began to feel the pressure of that silence. Her carefully crafted critique, intended to provoke, now sat unanswered. She had anticipated a direct reply, perhaps even a forceful one. But Obama's stillness allowed her words to sit heavily in the air. The longer he remained quiet, the more noticeable it became. She glanced his way, looking for any sign of discomfort, but he remained composed. The shift was subtle but powerful. In silence, he changed the dynamic, making her feel the full weight of her own remarks. Finally, after what felt like an extended pause, Obama spoke. "Soon Barron will know you're his mom," he said, voice steady and calm, as if making a simple observation. The audience froze. Ivanka, mid-critique, faltered. Her expression tightened slightly, a flash of unease crossing her face. The statement wasn't loud or accusatory. It was quiet, controlled, and layered with meaning, hinting at something personal beneath her carefully shaped public image. For the first time, Ivanka's composure wavered. She shifted, lips pressed together, eyes briefly unfocused as she searched for a response. The audience noticed the change. It wasn't only the content of Obama's remark, it was the delivery. He didn't defend himself aggressively. He responded with calm precision. That confidence struck harder than any direct argument. Ivanka, once poised, now showed a small moment of uncertainty. Obama had achieved with a few words what a heated debate would not have. He interrupted her momentum quietly, revealing a small crack in her confidence. The crowd sensed it. Without attacking her, he shifted the conversation entirely. Ivanka opened her mouth as if to respond, then hesitated, falling silent. She had expected a direct rebuttal and found none. Instead, she was left confronting her own vulnerabilities. Those watching understood. Obama had already shaped the moment. His response proved that influence doesn't always come from volume. Sometimes a single, well-timed sentence changes the tone completely. The room remained tense from the impact of his subtle remark. Ivanka looked down briefly, as if replaying what had just been said. She had expected confrontation and prepared for it. Instead, Obama had responded with calm accuracy. The audience felt the shift, quiet authority carrying more weight than any dramatic exchange. But Obama wasn't finished. He allowed the moment to settle, then prepared to speak again. This opportunity mattered. After a steady breath, he leaned slightly forward. His voice even and measured, the voice of someone who had endured criticism without losing composure. "Do you remember what your father said about you?" he asked. His tone remained neutral, but his intent was unmistakable. "You should. I imagine it's something you've tried to forget." Ivanka's face lost its color. The words landed sharply, dismantling the last bit of confidence she held. The room grew still. Obama's comment was not an accusation or a dramatic revelation. It was quieter, more impactful. He was not confronting her political ideas. He was acknowledging something deeper, something personal she could not easily dismiss. The audience didn't yet understand the exact reference, but Obama's tone made it clear. This was not a casual remark. He wasn't speaking about policy. He was addressing something real, something tied to her own experience, something no amount of influence or careful presentation could fully hide. Ivanka, usually composed, felt the weight of it immediately. Her mind raced, trying to pinpoint exactly where his words were aimed. She had read the headlines and heard the rumors. For years, she tried to distance herself from her father's controversial remarks, attempting to build an identity not shaped by the turmoil of his behavior. Yet deep down, she understood there was no real escape. The world had not forgotten his comments, the casual lines that sparked public outrage and discomfort. From the inappropriate joke about dating her if she weren't his daughter to the remark calling her the best piece of ass he had ever had, those statements reached far beyond their private family life. And now, subtly, Obama had brought them back into focus. It wasn't only that he referenced her father's words. It was the way he positioned them. Without stating them directly, he acknowledged the contrast between Ivanka's polished public image and the more complicated reality tied to her family. He shifted the conversation from political debate to a moral reflection, suggesting, "You may try to separate yourself from your father, but the world still connects you to him." His message was clear. These comments remain part of her reality, no matter how much she tries to overlook them. The impact was immediate. Ivanka's breath caught. The narrative she had built around herself had been interrupted, and Obama had exposed its weak spots with accuracy. Her father's words were not merely inconvenient, they were part of a truth she could never fully escape. No matter how she shaped her leadership image, the audience felt the shift. This was no longer a simple discussion on leadership. It had become a deeper moment of accountability. Obama wasn't playing political games. He was offering a reflection. The harder Ivanka tried to sidestep it, the more obvious it became. Her father's influence was unavoidable. A brief silence filled the room. Ivanka searched for words, any words, to recover from the unexpected blow. Her mouth opened, but no clear response followed. Obama had achieved what her political opponents had not. He pushed her to confront the uncomfortable reality of her identity, her family's impact, and the conflict between her public persona and private background. As Ivanka's composure faltered, Obama stayed calm, his expression steady. He hadn't attacked her personally or insulted her. He simply reminded her of a truth she could not erase. The audience sensed the seriousness of the exchange and shifted quietly. This was the defining moment. All attention focused on Ivanka, waiting for her response. The room's dynamic had changed, with Obama now holding control. Silence stretched, growing heavier with each second. Ivanka's usual certainty faded. Her confidence slipped as discomfort took over. Her thoughts scattered, but one fact was clear. Obama had touched a sensitive point. His measured words disrupted the image she had carefully maintained. It wasn't just a reference to her father's controversial remarks. It was the realization that Obama had unsettled her in a way she had not anticipated, leaving her unsure of how to respond. For years, she had managed her public presentation with precision. She was the refined, capable, independent figure working to separate herself from her father's most contentious traits. But now, in full view of the audience, the mask she had constructed was breaking. There was no way to repair it, not after Obama's deliberate intervention. She tried to speak, but no words formed. Her throat felt tight. The weight of the moment pressed on her. The line she had practiced for this situation disappeared. She believed she was prepared, ready to answer any point Obama raised. Yet here she was, silent and frozen. Her hands tightened at her sides, her breath quick and uneven. It wasn't only her father's comments shaking her. It was how Obama had exposed a vulnerability she wasn't prepared to face. He hadn't accused her of complicity or launched an attack. Instead, he addressed the deeper influence of her family and her place within it, a tactic difficult to counter. Her eyes moved across the room, searching for any sign of support or a way to regain balance, but nothing appeared. Obama's words lingered. Every set of eyes watched her. She felt the pressure and the quiet expectation of the audience waiting for her reaction. She tried again to speak, her voice cracking, but the words sounded empty and disconnected from what she felt. Slowly, she realized her carefully managed image was coming undone. Within minutes, the composed public figure she had worked to maintain was slipping out of her grasp. Her father's voice echoed in her mind, reminding her never to show weakness. But this moment wasn't something she could overcome through force. This was different. Obama had challenged more than her leadership. He pushed her to confront something personal that she had long avoided. Her face warmed, emotions rising, embarrassment, frustration, anger. The pressure in her chest grew as panic crept in. Suddenly, emotion overtook her. "I don't need to take this," she snapped, her voice rising. It was a desperate attempt to regain control, to assert influence as the situation fell apart. Coherent points no longer mattered. Her words came out uneven and scattered, reflecting the turmoil inside her. "I'm not going to stand here and let you undermine me like this," she insisted, her voice shaking with anger. But she could hear it herself. The words lacked the strength she wanted. The force in her tone only highlighted how unsettled she was. The audience remained silent, unsure how to react. Some shifted, others exchanged hesitant glances. Her outburst stood in sharp contrast to the composed image she had built over the years, creating a shift impossible to ignore. This wasn't just a slip in composure, it was a complete collapse, and everyone sensed it. She had reached her breaking point. She arrived expecting to demonstrate leadership, counter Obama effectively, and present herself as a strong independent figure in her complicated family environment. Instead, she stood there, her words fading, her identity unraveling before the people she hoped to impress. Without another word, she turned sharply and walked off stage, her heels striking the floor in a steady mechanical rhythm. The audience remained still in the silence that followed. Ivanka didn't look back. She couldn't. Once she exited, nothing could undo the impression her breakdown had left. She intended to appear confident and firm, capable of standing her ground. Instead, she revealed her own fragility and uncertainty. As she left, Obama stayed seated, calm, watching her departure. He had done very little, yet the outcome was complete. Her own reaction had carried the moment. As quiet murmurs spread through the room, Obama's soft final words lingered. "I've updated her software." The comment was subtle yet meaningful. He hadn't depended on harsh language or aggressive tactics. He relied on steadiness, composure, and an understanding of the truth she had long tried to avoid. The room fell into a thoughtful silence, a single question unspoken. How could she come back from this? As the sound of Ivanka's steps faded, the tension eased, replaced by a reflective calm. The audience had witnessed a rare moment, one where composure, influence, and truth met with no room left for pretense. Obama stayed seated, his calm almost reflective. His presence alone signaled authority. He didn't have to speak right away. He had navigated moments like this before, when personal truths appeared unexpectedly, and he understood how to manage them. Eventually, he rose, posture easy but carrying a quiet confidence. The audience, still processing everything that had unfolded, leaned in naturally, waiting for a final thought from the person who had shifted the atmosphere without raising his voice. He stepped to the microphone in a steady, intentional manner. He didn't need theatrics. His presence was enough. "I know," he began, voice calm and even, "that it's easy to get lost in the noise, the headlines, the arguments, and all the distractions. But what truly matters isn't who speaks the loudest or who has the biggest platform. What matters is the truth." The words were simple, yet they carried weight, pulling the room closer as if he were offering something personal. His eyes moved across the audience, creating a connection that felt both individual and universal. "The truth doesn't need anger to protect it," Obama continued. "It doesn't need to be buried under political games or personal attacks. Truth stands on its own, and it always finds its way forward." He wasn't only addressing the people in that room. He was speaking to the millions who would eventually watch the exchange. His message went beyond any single conflict. It wasn't about Ivanka or about defending himself. It was about a larger principle, the value of integrity, openness, and holding steady in the face of dishonesty. "Sometimes we forget that leadership isn't about winning arguments or tearing others down," he said, his tone gaining quiet firmness. "Leadership is about showing up, being truthful, and doing what's right, even when it isn't easy." It was clear he wasn't simply making a political statement. He was making an ethical one. In a world full of constant noise and division, truth remained the grounding force, guiding leaders when the way forward seemed uncertain. In that moment, his steady words created clarity amid confusion. "None of us are perfect," he added, his tone softening. "But each of us can be honest, can admit when something is wrong, and can take responsibility. That's the real measure of leadership." A respectful quiet spread through the room. This wasn't about political sides anymore. It was about the inner guide each person carries. Obama's message stretched far beyond Ivanka or anyone who disagreed with him. It applied to everyone, a reminder to return to what matters: the pursuit of truth, the willingness to be open, and the ability to stay grounded under pressure. He paused briefly, scanning the room, fully aware of the moment's significance. There was one more thing he wanted to leave them with, something that would echo not only there but far beyond. "I'll leave you with this," he said, voice steady yet warm. "There is always space for honesty, always space for connection. And as for you, Baron, I'll give you proof of that. You can reach out to me any time." The line was simple, almost casually delivered, but it carried real meaning. In that brief statement, he reached toward the future, toward a young person still developing and learning. By mentioning Baron Trump, Ivanka's younger brother, he reminded the room that leadership is ultimately about setting an example for those who come next, not holding grudges or fueling conflict. As he finished, the room stayed silent, not in discomfort, but in reflection. The audience was taking in the weight of his message. In just a few minutes, Obama had managed a tense moment with composure and lifted the conversation above politics and personal disputes. He gave a slight nod toward the crowd and stepped away from the microphone. There was no grand exit. The message had already been delivered clearly. As the audience began to move, the impact remained. What started as a confrontation had become a thoughtful reminder about truth, responsibility, and leadership. The event was over, but Obama's words stayed in the air. The room had been shown that in a world filled with conflict and noise, It is the quiet strength of truth and the courage to stay open that define real leadership. And as people walked out, one question lingered. Would they carry these lessons forward, or let the noise of the world pull them away from what matters most? For that moment, truth had spoken, and people had listened.